My name is Sally Hallingstad, and I'm the 2025-2026 WEN Global Board President. In today's Path to Power interview, we have the pleasure of speaking with Elizabeth Howe, COO of La Plata Electric Association, which is based in Durango, Colorado. But rather than read her bio, I'm just going to let Elizabeth kick us off with a self-introduction.
Sounds great. So let's see, where do I start? My name is Elizabeth Howe. As Sally said, I work at La Plata Electric Association based out of Durango. I moved to the western slope of Colorado in 1993, a few years after finishing college. I went to Loyola University in Chicago. I'm from Illinois originally, and my intention was actually to go to medical school. That wasn't happening for me, so I decided to pivot and I moved out to a really small ski town in 1993, Telluride. My parents' friends had moved there in the late 70s, and I thought, well, this will be a nice place to figure out what's next. At that time, there wasn't such thing as a gap year, but that's basically what it was. It was a gap year between undergrad and then, going into another, maybe going for an advanced degree. So I found myself in Telluride, Colorado in 1993, searching for my next kind of step. And I immediately fell in love with the mountain lifestyle. I worked three jobs. I skied all the time. I worked really hard being a Midwesterner, but that turned into a 30-year career in ski area operations. And it was quite accidental, honestly. Um, and then, and that involved a couple of moves. I was in Telluride for 20 years. I then went to Vail and worked there for almost 5 years. And then I was offered a position here in Durango, and moved back further west. And I've been in Durango for about 8 years. The first four were still in the ski industry. And then I had a very fortuitous meeting with someone in the energy industry. And that caused me to really kind of rethink my career, and I made a big pivot into energy in 2022. So I'm also a single mom. I have one amazing son who is a sophomore at Colorado State studying business. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, I love these interviews because as much as you and I have talked, I don't think I knew that you were from Illinois, or somehow I missed that, and that you were intentional, like originally going to go for medical school. So I find that fascinating how you ended up there and then on the mountain and then now in the electric side. So I think that's incredible. Do you mind diving in a little bit about that fortuitous meeting that you had to get you in the energy industry? Because I know it was based originally on a project that you were doing.
Absolutely. So when I left the ski industry, it was during COVID, times were tough. And I had a break and I thought, I'm going to invest in myself. And so I actually applied for an MBA program and actually applied to six and decided to enroll at the University of Denver and get an MBA. It was something like I'd always wanted an advanced degree and it'd been on my mind forever. And I finally was like, okay, I have an opportunity to do it. So for one of my classes, I needed to interview a leader and ask them about kind of like a little bit about their path, and actually the class was primarily rooted in integrity, and so I was really looking for a leader that um I knew a little bit about but not a lot, and really wanted to dig into kind of what made them tick and what made them a great leader, all rooted in integrity. And so I had met Jessica Metlock, who was the CEO of La Plata Electric, in passing a few times. We were both newer to Durango, both professional women. And so somebody connected us, and we've gone out a few times and just, had some nice conversations. So I actually called her up for this class I was doing, this interview I was doing, and she graciously agreed to meet with me. And so I come to La Plata Electric, we sit down in her office and start chatting, and I'm asking her all about her. And towards the end of that conversation, which was, I think, supposed to be like 30 minutes, and we were getting close to an hour, she said, "No, wait a minute. Tell me what you're doing right now, and tell me more about this project." And as I started to explain that, she was like, she's like, "I have an open position that you might be interested in." And I was actually, my immediate reaction was no, 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 no. I'm going to graduate school right now. I don't know what I want to do next. Like, no, I'm not entertaining a new job. I'm actually thinking I'm going to move back, towards more of a ski centric area, no. And she was like, no, just think about it. So that's how this shift started for me.
That's amazing because that kind of leads to one of the questions I had sent to you about how has networking factored into your career success. And I mean, right smack there is a great example
Yeah,
of building that network and finding your next gig. Are there other ways that you've seen that networking has benefited you in your career?
absolutely. I say yes to almost everything. And it's great, but also a problem sometimes for me. And I love giving back to my community. I just love being involved in, associations and just, for the greater good. And so I'm often saying yes to boards and interviews, and those are all networking opportunities. So right now, I'm super fortunate as part of my position here at LPEA. Um, I'm on a couple of boards in town, and I'm actually the chair of the Economic Development Alliance, which was, basically through a networking opportunity, just getting to meet people, going to, business after hours, going to women in public power conferences, all of those things. Really, if you show up as your best self to all of those things, those are all like potential job interviews. And connecting, you never know. You can tell by my story, medical school, ski industry, power. I didn't have a grand plan for my career. So all of these meetings and meetups and opportunities to get to know people and get to know different industries and get to know your community are super valuable. And I have taken advantage of those. That's exactly what my meeting with Jessica was. And I'm so grateful. I mean, and I'm so grateful that I thought about that she pushed me to think about it and I said yes. And it turned into this remarkable opportunity and a whole new, you know, I'm learning so much. I feel like my skills apply and I can really, continue to add value.
Well, and since you brought it up, what's your day-to-day look like? Because I know you just recently were appointed COO, I believe, back in June of this year. And so what, even since starting at La Plata, like what's kind of your day-to-day and how's it transitioned into being the COO role? Like what are some of the biggest changes you've seen?
Um, as a CEO or a COO, you become the face of your organization. So I would say the biggest change I've noticed is that um, invitations to participate in more community events, to be involved externally, which is hard because I already have a full plate of divisions and departments that I work with internally. I think I directly oversee six very different areas of the business. So, I'm trying to figure out how to balance, and this role is fairly new to me here. I was chief operating officer at another organization, but you really do have to figure out how to balance your internal and external commitments, um, especially in rural towns. I've lived on the Western Slope rurally now for 32 years, and LPEA is a cornerstone business of the community. And so you're often being asked to present, talk, collaborate with. And so that's probably been the biggest change, I would say, with this title. Um, and then I am who I am and I show up how I show up. So I wouldn't say I've done a lot differently to come to work in a different way. But I definitely have to find ways to incorporate more time for colleagues. I did take on a new division. And so, it's all, and I live by my calendar. I'm a calendar person. I'm very organized in that way. Um, so people often will say, like, how do you manage all of this and keep projects moving and keep things on track? It's like, I live by my calendar and I immediately set my next goal or deadline or target like as I'm moving through my day. So my calendar looks crazy. People try to get in, I make it visible to everyone so you can see exactly what I'm doing and where I'm at. And um I should say everyone in my organization. And yeah, it's packed, but so daily it could be anything. I could be starting off with an interview. Our next meeting is a leadership team meeting, an insurance committee meeting later. I think I have two one-on-ones today. Um, Tuesdays are like the big day around here for meetings. But yeah, it can be a lot of different things. Or I could just be, out in the community. I could be at an Economic Development Alliance meeting, or it's all over the place.
So part of my ignorance on this, but when you're in a smaller organization like La Plata, and I know you said you were COO before, and you just said you cover kind of six departments. Is that normal for COO? And it is. And if so, what are those departments and like how do they range as far as like people or personalities even?
Yeah. I mean, it's different based on each organization. And I can kind of contrast to give you an idea. My last organization, which was resort based, all the resort general managers reported up to the COO. So I was, that was a matrixed and highly remote. We were in 5 different states. So, that was more like coordination and ensuring that we were collaborating and coming up with best practices. That was sort of a different situation. This one, our CEO, who is also fairly new, he used to work in Colorado politics, newer to the Western Slope. His scope is much more national, regional. So he's very outward focused, and based on energy. He's got a, energy policy background. So I'm a little bit more locally focused, is I guess how it would contrast the two positions. My divisions are human resources, which we call people and culture, safety and risk and compliance, facilities, information technology, customer service, and that is it. Um, so we have a CEO here and then 3 chiefs. We have a chief operating officer, a chief financial officer, and a chief strategy officer. And so everything basically reports up to one of us in that way. And we handle the day to day. And we're in an energy transition here. We have left our all requirements, long-term contract, generation transmission provider, and we are creating our own energy portfolio. So we have this huge transition going on within our organization, and our CEO felt like this would be the best way to manage this transition, think about his focus externally, and then how we could handle things here in the day-to-day and in the community. I hope that answered your question. I just think it's different in every organization, the COO role.
I imagine so. I just remember when we were at dinner in Spokane and how you and Trina were talking and like just the different departments you had to cover. I was like, they don't even make sense to me. Like they are
No.
just different people, different personalities. And so that internal kind of navigating of personalities and departments combined with the external navigation that you're doing locally, like I'm just curious with having your personality and being 100% in on everything. One, do you find yourself having to not change your personality, but maybe change your approach, which I'm sure you do, but like how would you say you change your approach and do you find yourself censoring yourself in for lack of a better word? And then the second part of that question would be like, where do you find the energy?
Okay. So yes, I work with a wide variety of personalities, um, and people functioning at different levels, right? So for me, situational leadership, I deal with each person or each division. I meet them where they are, right? So, and sometimes that's a verbal commitment. Hey, you're brand new to your role. I'm an subject matter expert in this role. I'm going to give you a lot of guidance and maybe even direction. Or you're functioning very highly in your role. You actually don't need much from me. Maybe just to touch base, maybe a project, somebody to help you manage through a project or a sticky situation. So that's something that I think I just picked up along the way. Working with working in the ski industry, honestly. That's decades of, oh, this worked, this doesn't work. it's not a one size fits all for me. And when people talk about being a really consistent leader and like I treat every scenario the same way, I don't think that that's possible. I think there's just nuances all the time. And so you really have to know the people you're working with, and your peers, your colleagues, your who you report to. Like it's management in all directions, and leadership in all directions. But I think the core to all of that is self-leadership. And so the consistent part for me is I really have done a lot of work and understand my core values. And I think I know how I'm going to show up, right? And I think I know um, the basis of of almost all of my decisions. And I'm a pretty decisive person. So um, the consistent part is me. And part of that consistency is how do I show up and how can I show up as my best self? Um, And so I do have some routines. I used to get out of bed and put on my clothes and like get to work and be, have that process take 10 minutes. Now I'm a very slow morning person. Like I get up 2 hours before I need to be anywhere. I maybe have some meditation. I might do some yoga. I might just take my dog for a walk, but something to start my day off nice and grounded and foundational. I love coffee, so I drink my coffee in the morning. Um, and I am I just know my limits anymore. Like if I say yes to a commitment in the evening, I know that's going to have an effect on me the next day, and I'll think about my schedule, and set it up accordingly. In terms of, so I'll tie that back into like censoring myself again. I think back to, my 30s, when I was in my 30s and kind of just starting off in leadership. Somebody had given me a piece of advice that was like, just be yourself, be exactly you, and people will appreciate that. Well, that doesn't always work. That's what I figured out. My So I've had to, again, situationally figure out like, does this work in this situation? And over time, I've just matured and grown as a person. So I would say that there's a period in my career where I really had to think about what I was saying, what I was doing, and how that would be received by whatever the audience was, whether it was in a one-on-one or, on a stage in front of 1,000 people. Um, I still do think about that, especially as a woman in a very male-dominated industry and having been a woman in a male-dominated industry for a very long time. Um, there are things I will say in a room full of women that I would not say in a mixed gender meeting or, a heavily male-dominated meeting, because I know they won't land or they'll be misconstrued. So yes, there is still a lot of thoughtfulness that goes into things I say, how I say them. Sometimes I don't say anything at all, because that's also very powerful to not be speaking.
I
Did I
agree.
answer
And
your
I think,
question?
yes, yes, you did. And I think the thing that I liked the most out of that, you kind of touched on it a bit, was just kind of with age comes wisdom and the knowledge of yourself. And like when you can be authentically 100% yourself and when you have to like, like I like what you said, be thoughtful about what you're saying and your intention, right? So I do think that uh, people need to remember that just sometimes you just live and learn and like you say things in the wrong space, but if you own up to it and learn from that mistake of what you said or how you treated someone, then you're only going to be better later in life and become a better leader because of it. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you
And
sharing
I
that.
think, thank you. And I think too, in this world of virtual meetings, we have the opportunity to really study people's reactions. And I actually had this happen last week. I was in a meeting with two colleagues and it was an intense conversation, but we weren't aligned. And I said what I felt needed to be said from the seat that I sit in the organization, and I could tell it was not going well with one of my colleagues. And it was funny because one person was remote, two of us were in the office, we were all on the screen. And so afterwards, I just got up and walked over to my colleague's office and I said, I could see the tension and I could see that we weren't in agreement. You want to talk about it? And we had another 10-minute conversation. So I think that um, sometimes, just again, like how did it land? And do I need to have some follow-up? Um, because just letting it go, especially as a woman, like I want to make sure that we got to where we needed to get to. And sometimes I feel like as a woman, I have to work a little bit harder to make sure that I didn't come off um, in a way that I didn't want to be. It was about the outcome. I'm an outcome focused person. So it's not about, I just want to make sure, did we get to the right outcome together? And if there was some tension, let's talk about it and why it was there.
And that takes a lot of, going back to the wisdom, the experience, that takes a lot of ownership of your own comments and feelings, etc. So kudos to you for what clearly sounds like you're an amazing leader. Um, want to work for you. I hope nobody from Baker Tilly's like listening to this, but no. So I just have one last question as we round this out, and basically it's around with people that are watching this today, like it's I think it's a great example of you may set out to start to do something in your career and it ends up being totally different, but you've enjoyed it, you've enjoyed the ride all the way through, and you're really enjoying your role now. So what piece of advice would you give our listeners for those that are maybe in a career that they aren't super happy with right now, or they don't feel like it's really them? What suggestion would you give for them in that spot at this moment?
Mm. I mean, I've been in those positions where, yeah, you kind of know it's not right, or yeah, it's just not completely satisfying. I would say maybe a couple of things. One, if you're doing something that really is abrasive to your values, like start figuring out the next thing because that's not sustainable. Like if it's really, if your values are being abraded, like figure out how to get away from that because you won't stay healthy. But if it's okay and it's just not perfect, I would say when you're when you have the opportunity to reflect back, you will see that there was always something valuable happening. Lessons, growth, opportunities to learn new things, opportunities to network. Um, you have to kind of find your inspiration in maybe not the big, but the little. So look for the small things that can continue to inspire you and propel you forward and, spark further curiosities. Go to conferences. One of my goals for 2025 was to learn something new every month. So, some webinar will, pop through my email and I'll be like, okay, that's not my area of expertise, but I'm going to check that out. So just finding ways, small things you can do to while you're kind of plotting and planning for the next thing.
I love it. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to let our audience know or that I've missed on asking you?
Hmm. Just, as I know that not necessarily the audience will be a woman in an energy position, but if you are, um, just keep doing what you're doing. And one day we won't be women in energy. It'll just be, people working in energy and it'll be a balance of genders and of all walks of humans. And so I just say, just keep going and connect uh, and yeah, show up as your best self.